Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. We are excited to have Chris Hardwick back joining us, our adventurepreneur from Chris Hardwick Incorporated. Go to the website. That's CHRISHARDWICKINC.com. This speaker, this adventure retreat, he's a CEO, executive business coach, author. He does so much to inspire. And of course, he's here to talk today a little about disruption too. That's all part of it. The risk taking, the adventure, the culture. Chris, welcome back. How have you been?
I've been fantastic, Jill. It's been a while. I was off in Africa for 6 weeks since we last spoke. So that was
Wow.
kind of a
Wow.
crazy,
Where were you
adventurous
exactly? Fill
experience.
us in. What were you doing?
South Africa, kiteboarding in Mozambique, climbing mountains in Malawi, getting chased by rhinos and tigers and
Oh my.
hippopotamuses when I was in Tanzania and Kenya. And even spent a little bit of time lying on the beach in Zanzibar while I was doing some kiteboarding with my wife. So it was a
Oh
beautiful trip.
my goodness. Well, congratulations on some well-deserved time off. And for those that may not know who Chris Hardwick is and what he's all about, if that wasn't enough for you, the African adventure, tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, well, certainly going globetrotting every year has been a highlight of my career and my life, and something that my wife and I do every year. I think that visiting other places in the world allows you to understand just so much more about yourself and other people, and it really helps in the workplace with diversity and just understanding. So it's been a lifelong passion of mine, something I got from my parents.
And what is the current work you're doing? I mean, just you're everywhere, right? So you're working with people and clients all over the world, just to point out, correct?
Yeah, I have clients in Africa and North
Whew,
and South America and Australia. So yeah, it's exciting. It's
great.
exciting.
Well, I know, we all want success and we want to create that success, but sometimes it's disruption that you say is crucial actually for success. So why do you believe that? Again, disruption is crucial for achieving success. Would you mind explaining to us?
Yeah, first I need to just define the difference between
Yeah.
innovation and disruption because a lot of people get confused. Like I'll use a classic example. The iPhone disrupted phone technology. It disrupted everything. It disrupted so many different industries, right? But iPhone 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and so on, that's not disruption. That's just a tweak. That's a little bit of innovation on a pre-existing product. Disruption is something that actually completely transforms entire industries. It creates new industries.
Yeah.
The automotive vehicle disrupted the horse and cart. The
It sure
compass
did.
disrupted global navigation.
Yeah.
Like Netflix completely disrupted the way we get access to video streaming. And they disrupted Blockbuster, right? And so
Oh,
that's a really good example of how and why disruption is so important is because often business owners get their heads stuck in the sand with, we've got a great thing going here, let's not change it, just like Kodak, who actually invented the digital camera, but they stuck it in a drawer and locked it away so no one could find it. And then, of
wow.
course, Nikon and Canon and other companies invented it, and that transformed the photographic industry. And, there's Kodak, got their Kodachrome. Eventually, they had to, succumb to the fact that digital cameras was the new
Yeah.
reality. The digital cameras disrupted film. And so that is the definition of disruption, is when you completely create or transform an industry, an entire industry forever. So
My
yeah.
goodness. I love this. This is great. And a lot of people go through ups and downs, but it is crucial. Let's talk about how this disruptive thinking, in a sense, can lead to real innovation and really the competitive advantage behind this.
Yeah, I go back to Blockbuster. Everyone, that's such a fantastic example, right? Here's a business that was just absolutely flying. It had thousands of stores across North America. It was just how you got your videos. You went
Yeah.
and got your VCR, you rented it, you paid your late fees and everything. Netflix actually offered to sell, or Blockbuster had an opportunity actually to buy Netflix for $50 million. And
Wow.
Blockbuster said, there's no future in this, right? So the thing about it is it's really our mindset and how we think about the future of business, and more importantly, how we think about the future of our own business.
Wow.
Disruption is really innovation on steroids, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's such a competitive advantage that if you are able to find a way to disrupt not only your business, but your entire industry, you are going to be a leader. You are going to be out in front of everybody else, and everybody
Yeah.
else is just going to be playing catch up. So
Catch up.
that's your competitive
Mm-hmm.
advantage, to get out in front of your competition, to
Yep.
look at ways of completely changing the industry that you're in and disrupting the status quo.
Got it.
That's
And
your competitive advantage.
now, what ways can, an established industry benefit from disruption?
Yeah, a lot of established industries are really stuck.
Yep.
This is the way we've always done it. It's kind of the old way of thinking, right? And it's funny. I touched on briefly about travel and
Yep.
diversity. We want to, in businesses, we really want to have a diverse group of people in that business of all ages, all generations, from all different places in the world, because I think that diversity is a really key approach to creating an environment where people can be innovative and be constantly thinking of new ideas that they can bring forward to their organization. And we need to really lean into those and explore those and determine whether or not there's any merit in those without just shutting them down before asking the question, well, how much is that going to cost?
Yeah.
We need to allocate some budget to that. We need to have specific innovation teams that are constantly striving towards new ways of delivering business,
Mm-hmm.
especially in their own industry. And a lot of it starts with zeroing in on that little 5 or 10% thing that your clients really don't like about the way your services or products are delivered. If you can figure out how to solve that thing, if you don't, somebody else will.
Wow. Well, also, I want to point out here that maybe there's business ventures, right? That really could help because you have to approach, as you say, identifying opportunities for disruption in your business ventures. How do you do that?
Yeah, I think it is that 5%. It's there's always something about the way you do business that, there's a little piece of your business that's maybe difficult or challenging or a problem that's hard to solve. And that is the thing that if people are really looking for what that thing is, that thing to use like Uber as an example, right? Um, you're driving, you hail a cab, the cab's a bit dirty or you're not really happy with the trip, but there's no way to give any feedback. You just go, oh, well, that's just the way it is, right? And you jump in the
Yeah.
next cab, or you don't get picked up at the right time, you don't get delivered to the right address or something like that. Well, and then Uber comes along and they create a system whereby the driver can comment on the passenger can comment on the driver. And now it's like a self-policing process so that those little tiny things that everybody used to get, really annoyed about when they ride in a cab, that problem's gone away now because their business revolves around getting a 5-star rating every time they pick up a customer. So that person driving that Uber vehicle is, they're polite, they're talking to you, they're taking you exactly where you want to go. The vehicle's nice and clean, often it's nice and new. And so what happened was now you had the cabbie companies had to really start defending their turf and they had to get better. And it elevated something. But essentially, Uber and Lyft and all those other guys, they came in and they fixed a small problem that everybody was annoyed about, but there was no way it was ever going to get fixed under the current regime and under the current, status quo. So that's
Yeah.
an example of finding that 5% that no one else is fixing. And then looking
Amazing.
at a way to completely disrupt the entire industry, not just solve that 5%.
Well, could you give us some examples, more examples of successful disruption that you've been a part of and involved in? We appreciate it, Chris.
Yeah, I was working with a company that was in the telecommunications space, and they had lots of sales guys running around in their vehicles, knocking
Hmm.
on doors, going to people's shops, and we created an inverse of that company, which was essentially a company that was going to do exactly the same thing, but they weren't going to have people running around in vehicles.
Yeah.
They were going to do everything digitally. They looked at incorporating chatbots. They looked at making the system more efficient. They utilized other couriers for disseminating and moving goods around. They were able to get rid of all of their fleet of trucks. They were able to have people, working like providing better service, right? At the end of the day, people just wanted service. They wanted to be able to order a new phone and have it dropped off at their office, but you got one guy running around in a vehicle trying to get the 20 different offices. He's stuck in traffic. He's not like getting there. He's trying to. Anyway, they just found a way that they could disrupt their own business through changing the way they ran the company. And so it
Wow.
took some new thinking of how to change it. What happened was their customer service went up dramatically because they
Hmm.
weren't constrained by their own fleet of vehicles. They were able to get back to people immediately because they leaned into the digital technology that's available in dealing with customer service. So they just looked at their own business, critically analyzed it, and figured out how they could leverage off technology and other things that were not the way they were doing it. So they had to think differently. They had to think intentionally about really disrupting their own business, almost putting their own business out of business in a way.
Wow. Love hearing this. Do you want to share another example?
Well, let me think. There's
So
another
many.
company. No, well, another company I'm working with. They are in the they're a roofing company, and one of the things that they were doing was they were sort of dancing around the solar market. And at the time, you had companies doing the roofing work, companies doing solar work, and this wasn't really disruption truly, but to a certain degree it was because there was nobody, quite simple, nobody that was doing both. Now it sounds kind of obvious, right? But when you're up on the roof, putting a new roof on, it's just as easy to be putting the solar in at the same time. So they just basically combined two industries together that traditionally had been completely separate. And now they were just shot to the front as the forerunners in roofing and solar because nobody else is doing it.
Yeah.
And so that was a real simple operation for them. They just added a different layer of skills to their business, and now they're able
Hmm.
to do both
Awesome.
seamlessly. Whereas and think about the coordination requirements when you're trying to line up different subcontractors to show up at your place at the same time. These guys have got it all under one roof now. Really
Awesome.
simple.
Beautiful. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing. And also, just to point out, Chris, how do we contact you? Let's remind everyone of all the ways we could do so, Mr. Hardwick.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot. Definitely jump on my website, Chris Hardwick Inc., CHRISHARDWICKINC.com, chrishardwickinc.com. You can Google me at Chris Hardwick Leadership. You can jump on the phone, 778-836-8226. So there's three
Beautiful.
ways to get a hold of me. I'd love to have a conversation. You can book a call with me and let's get to know one another and let's talk about how we can disrupt your business.
Perfect. Now, how do you navigate with those that and some of the challenges, and resistance that can often come with disruption?
Yeah, well, it often, there's a funny thing, and I think we've talked about this before, what happens in the mind of most business owners. They are serial risk takers earlier on in their ventures and in
Mm.
their careers. They're borrowing money and hiring people, and they've really got everything to lose if they don't really lean into the business and drive hard and take risks. But unfortunately, what happens in most businesses, the risk profile changes as they become comfortable, as they maybe create this net worth and they own a couple of houses and got some
Hmm.
nice cars. Now all of a sudden the fear of loss kicks in. So
Yeah.
they don't want to change anything because they're kind of think like they're on the gravy train. And so that's why it's so important to challenge the current way of thinking. But you're not going to do that with the same people that built the business. You're
Hmm.
going to need a different type of person. You're going to need somebody who's coming in and looking at your business and really critically analyzing it and saying, sure, that might be working great. Sure, that might be the way we've been doing it for years, but maybe we need to reevaluate the way we do business Maybe we need to be talking to our customers and our consumers and asking them honestly about what are the things that they don't do like, but more importantly, what are the things they don't like? Where are the areas of the business that we can improve? We
Yeah.
can change things dramatically. And often our clients are the best people to identify the opportunities for us. So having these conversations, just imagine if the taxi companies had been asking those questions to their
Yeah.
customers and
Yeah.
asking them what they didn't like and their
Yeah.
pet peeves, and they were fixing those problems, there would not have
Hmm.
been a need for Uber to have been created. I mean, think about Airbnb, it's the same story. Hotels were getting really cocky, really comfortable,
Yeah.
and then Airbnb comes along, and all of a sudden, it's the same process as Uber, where you've got this ability to provide feedback, and
Yeah.
the feedback is what results in the performance of your company. But it was about that customer client relationship.
Yeah.
We need to be really improving that relationship and improving those conversations so that we know exactly how our client is feeling. And we're working to solve their needs, no matter how small they are.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Chris. Also, just want to point out, Chris Hardwick, we're here talking about disruption and why that's really critical for success for individuals, for corporations, and so many. So we're talking here about navigating through this. And what about, individuals and organizations? How can they foster a culture that embraces disruptive thinking?
Yeah, in addition to the reaching out and speaking with our customers and really digging down into the nitty-gritty to find out what those concerns and problems are, I think a great opportunity in some organizations, some of the ones I've worked with, is to create like an innovation team within the organization. And often, if you grab one person from each of the departments, and you might want to allocate a little bit of a budget for them, but most of the time these people will be so excited about creating new opportunities for the business
Yeah.
that if they devote a couple of hours a week to it, not in addition to what they're already doing, let's be clear, because that just means more work, right? We want to carve out a little bit of their regular work weeks so they can focus as a group towards coming up with innovative solutions. So I think an innovation group, I hate the word committee, but we'll use that word, an innovation committee. And if they go off and they start doing deep research on ideas, do a lot of brainstorming around things they could do better, most of the time we already know the things that are broken, but we don't have a conversation about it. We kind of pretend it doesn't exist and maybe it'll go away, or it's only such a small percentage of our business. It's not really going to impact us. But drilling down into those small things, and sometimes we'll unearth things that can turn into massive opportunities for the business. So you've got to be able to give this group of people the freedom to
Yeah.
be able to run models, to do market research, to explore new technology, explore new things, new ways of thinking that they can bring into the business. So that would be one way that I've seen work really well in these organizations. And then really dissecting your business and looking at everything that you do and looking at, well, how can you do everything like the opposite way? You know,
True. Yeah.
like thinking about, well, that's the way we do it now. What if we did it this way? And it's asking a lot of what if questions.
Yeah.
What if we did this? What if we did that? And without saying, oh, no, that's a stupid idea, saying, you know what? Let's have a look at that. Let's dig a little bit deeper. Let's
Let's
go away and
embrace
do
it.
some
Yeah.
research. Let's
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
So that's an opportunity for individuals within organizations to really foster that culture of innovation.
Beautiful. Well, what would you say, what advice would you give to someone who's looking maybe to disrupt their industry or their career at this point?
Yeah, I think that there's got to be an alignment between the decision makers in the organization
Okay.
and you, no matter where you are, no matter what stage of your career. But sometimes I would look for like the values. You might have a leader who has a fixed mindset.
Okay.
And if that's the person that's controlling the purse strings and that's the person that is controlling where the other people in the organization spend their time.
Yeah.
You're really going to fight around that. So you're looking for someone who's got a growth mindset, who's open to change, who recognize the benefits and the values of bringing forward change. And so being a change agent is huge. And that is something that I would encourage people to look for, whether it's in their organization or in another organization. Are these, so look for those people, look for those decision makers, look for those people that are in positions of authority who control the purse strings, look for people who have a growth mindset and are going to be prepared to allow you to start exploring these opportunities.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much. And would you want to talk about failure? Because failure can also be a really great catalyst for this type of disruptive change, right?
Absolutely. You know, there's a great saying in the technology world, fail fast, fail cheap, fail often. And too often people want to spend way too much time and money investing in some new technology or something they think that's going to work. And then by the time they get to market 3 years later, it's a dinosaur already. Things are moving so quickly. So failure is a catalyst for disruption because failure allows us to learn whether something works or does not work. So the sooner we can test, do like beta testing on things that or ideas that we're coming up with, float them back through our the same, doing surveys with our consumers, our customers, our clients, and then hey, coming back to them, we've been working on this problem that you identified. Here's a solution that we're working towards. What do you think about that? So get some feedback. Let's get the conversation going. That would be one of the ways that I think you could explore the viability of new opportunities. Finding a growth mindset leader who is prepared to allocate some time and funding towards creating these disruptive opportunities.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And what would you say some of the common misconceptions are about disruption and its role in success?
You got to be lucky. Uh, it's going to cost too much money. We don't have time for that. What's wrong with the way we've always done it? Those types of questions uh, need to be removed. And most of the examples I shared, especially when you go to something like Uber and Airbnb, Airbnb started off by two guys just buying an inflatable air mattress and advertising that they had a place on the floor for people to sleep. Like it didn't cost a lot of money. Uber,
Ah, over,
same
right?
sort of thing. A couple of guys say, "Hey, I got a vehicle sitting there not being used. Let's use it to drive people around." Like Uber is the largest vehicle company in the world and it doesn't own any vehicles. Airbnb is the largest hotelier in the world and it doesn't own any hotel assets. Like it doesn't necessarily cost
Fascinating.
money to disrupt an industry.
Oh my goodness, that is so true.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. Anything else you want to share before we wrap up for today? We still got 2 more minutes left, Chris.
Oh, just, obviously this is a topic I'm quite passionate about. And it's fun working with clients and challenging them to revisit their business. And I like to mess with people, honestly, right? I like to get in their heads and challenge their way of thinking, challenge their businesses, and really get them to. And most of them will like, no, that's ridiculous. That's preposterous. We're not going to do that. We're not going to allocate any time and money to that because it all sounds and looks like a lot of hard work. And it is, but the rewards can be transformative. So I think that the opportunity here is to really double down on innovation within your business, look at ways that we can convert innovation into disruption, and look at how
Hmm.
we can change the world and change our businesses. And that's
Um,
that's what all entrepreneurs have done throughout their entire career. That's what they live for. They're so passionate about making change and
hmm.
creating something that doesn't exist today. And
Wow.
everybody thinks everything's been invented, everything's been created. Well, no, it hasn't. People are always thinking up new ideas. Unfortunately, too many of them go to the grave. without being explored.
Yeah.
Let's change that.
Got
Let's
it.
get
All
those
right.
ideas out. Let's jump on a call. Let's talk about it. Let's kick them around. Love to
Beautiful.
meet you. Love to talk to you about it.
Thank you so much, Chris. How can we contact you? Would you mind sharing the best form in all forms,
Yeah,
please?
just Google me on Chris Hardwick Leadership or email me at chris@chrishardwickinc.com. Check out my website, chrishardwickinc.com, or give me a call, 778-836-8226. That's 778-836-8226.
Great. Thanks so much, Chris. You have a great day. Looking forward to next week's conversation. Thanks so much. Bye bye.
All righty.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.